some Star Trek movies. Go ahead and tell me the good sci-fi movies that came out in the 80s. There is such a bullshit attempt at sci-fi throughout the 80s and most of the 90s that because of that, it caused generations that grew up in the 90s and the 2000s to look back and find these gems and then do all these different write-ups on it to continue to gen up all these different feelings about how great these movies were when they weren't even A, around when it fucking came out, and B, didn't understand the movie scope or movie environment in which these movies existed in. Like, seriously, Dune is getting some push now from like people who are basically 30 years old and under in preparation to the upcoming Dune. But literally, you can find decent reviews of Dune right now. And it's like, what are you watching? Did you watch the movie? But because we did such a shitty time during those 2 decades of producing good sci-fi, frankly, I think we got handicapped. I think everyone just looks at it as like we're the special kids who came out with the art project, and just because we actually kept color on the fucking paper instead of drawing all over the desk and shit like that, everyone's like, masterpiece, kid. Like, no one's putting that shit up against what's coming out now.
Rashawn's like, Rashawn's sitting there like, I am not putting this on the fucking refrigerator, okay?
Look, Blade Runner is a great movie, but the fact that the second one came out and totally missed the fucking mark, even though it was really spectacular. Look, come on now. Blade Runner, the second one, missed the hell
I think that is the most successful.
I
think that is the most successful sci-fi duo I've ever seen. I think both of those films were really, I mean, one is excellent, one is very good. They're the inverse of each other, but before we get too far off, one is a man asking if he's human, one is a non-human asking if he's a man, right? That's the
right. I get all that. I'm just pointing out in the actual movie, forget the whole reasons behind or what we think the director or writer is trying to say or blah blah blah. The actual movie, what people actually see. The first one got fucking panned. The second one got fucking panned. Like, come on.
Forget all that shit about, meaning.
Depth.
Well, we have to remember we're watching a movie.
I completely disagree with that. I think on damn near all positions. I mean, think of it this way. All right, you're going in for the yucks. You're going in for the explosions. Let's be honest. You should be satisfied as long as something dies. But if you're going to see a sci-fi movie like Minority Report, if you're going to see one like Johnny Mnemonic, if you're going to see one, where you're
Marvel
touching on
Endgame.
Even these movies that suck, air quotes suck, the thing about sci-fi is sometimes that's still an incredible fucking premise. Exactly. And even though it's the premise that can keep you talking. Now let's look at the Matrix movies, not the best trilogy. I'm going to say that right now. I said it out loud. But at the same time, the questions it made you ask outweighed the movie. And I feel like that totally made, even if those movies, and they do it well because you guys are Star Wars fans. So even if the movie is completely fucking inferior, the thing that makes you really embrace it are the things it brings up, the emotions it invokes, and the questions it asks. And it did that. And so in that sense, a lot more are successful than not. Because let's be honest, as soon as you get into this big convoluted fucking Kantian, Orwellian, whatever it is, and there's less lasers, a lot of people are going to say this is bullshit. Right. But let's be honest, you either are the kind of sci-fi person who thought Terminator 2 was the pinnacle, or you thought 2001: A Space Odyssey was the pinnacle, for example. You see what I'm saying? A headier one over an explosive-y one.
Yes.
But even the explosive-y one made you ask questions about nuclear proliferation, human nature, what is it to be human,
artificial intelligence,
all that.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that sci-fi doesn't do a great job of raising those questions. I'm just pointing out sometimes we conflate good movies with good premise.
No, absolutely. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah, sometimes.
Because trust me, I've made my own versions of Star Wars films. And just because they're bad movies doesn't mean I don't want to see a version of them again.
why are we hearing about this right now in the middle of this type of podcast? That is so wrong.
Amazing. All right. Well,
there's no way we can focus on anything now that we know there's movies out there in which Greg has produced.
Well.
Oh, I've chopped up a ton of movies.
Oh yeah, he loves to, loves to play around, and it's always good. But all right, with that, I'll bring it back to death, destruction, mayhem. Let's get Greg's last entry in here on his list, and let's hear what he has to say about how he's feeling and what your last list was. What your last one on your list was.
I have to say the one that made me think the most. I'm gonna go for the one that provoked the most thought right now, and it's Dead Poets Society. And the thing about the Dead Poets Society was, it wasn't a death; it was the death of a student. That was the thing that really caught you about that was the pinnacle, the death in the movie that really changed everything. But the fact that Robin Williams has this part, so I guess this is kind of a meta death. Don't know.
It is. Now,
Robin Williams has this part where he is just going on and on about passion and the verve and just, taking life by the arms, you know what I mean? And just living for your passion, and just having this really driven, meaningful life, and to know how he died. It's like you're looking in the eyes of someone who is going to kill him. Right now, he's making you want to live. He's making you want to write bad poetry and make promises you'll never fucking keep and attack a bucket list that you're never going to finish, but it doesn't matter because right now, that is how much he is making you want life, and if you remember this group of young men, oh, Captain, my Captain, and they started the Dead Poets Society again. It was fantastic. It was incredible to listen to then, and it's incredible to listen to now. Like, I don't know if you guys remember, but it was this really
loved it.
Uplifting movie. Everyone was talking about it. Everyone thought that they were the next fucking Thoreau. You're not. But everyone thought they were the next Thoreau. Everyone wanted to know who Walt Whitman was, right? Everyone was walking around talking about Walt Whitman. And it made you feel that way. And just to know that, obviously you can theorize about how much of his emotions there were before his diagnosis. Obviously.
Yeah, this was a long time before his diagnosis. So.
It was a long time before his diagnosis, but, people ask that question, like, how was he suicidal before the diagnosis? And then the diagnosis was just the thing that made it impossible. Who knows? We can't say for sure, but we can say that when you're looking into the eyes, you're watching him play this part, and you're looking into the eyes of someone is going to deteriorate like that and then kill themselves. It makes it hard to watch again. It is. Like that, I think, is one of the movies that it's been really hard to watch again because you're watching Robin Williams talk about love and creativity and passion and living for the moment,
I think it certainly changes. It's one of those that's changed with time for sure. Mm-hmm. He was a man clearly who had his demons. Like that much has been clear. He struggled with addiction. He struggled with depression and a lot of things, as a lot of comedians do. There was always that bit in it that at the time, he would sprinkle in himself. There were this was where he was able to, the first role he was able to stretch himself in, and he gets the role then in Good Will Hunting. Where he really stretches it a little bit further and he kind of tones it down even a little bit more. He tries a Boston accent, which, okay.
It's fine. Yeah, it's fine.
It was nice. Okay, thanks. Shit.
It sounds better when you don't live in Massachusetts and you're just from there.
Well, there's that. Yeah, exactly. This is where he tries to stretch himself, but then he has those moments where he breaks into Robin Williams a little bit in Dead Poet Society, where he talks about doing Hamlet as, or Macbeth as John Wayne. Is that a dagger I see before me? So he's still kind of, there's those moments that bring through. But yeah, I hadn't even thought about it. And I hadn't even thought about how saddening the death is of the character I will say, I remember that the father in that, the overbearing father, who then
was always the overbearing father.
Is always overbearing father. I remember watching that movie with my overbearing father, and the son killing himself, and like the whole weight of it completely going over his head. And thinking like, yeah, so if I off myself, Dad, is this going to be your reaction? Because it was just sort of like groan, eye roll. Right?
You didn't tell me this movie was about a bunch of pussies.
Exactly.
Jeez.
And it really was that feeling, right? It was weird. There was the meta feel that you were talking about now. And then I remember now, of course, the meta feel of being there with my overbearing father, right? He didn't want me in sports, or he definitely wanted me in the business world and certainly in mathematics and English, and just hardcore academics, right? That was the tradition he was coming from. So similar to that father, right? That was all happening. So
super ironical is the sense I saw it with my father too, but I remember when I see that movie, I think of my dad only because he literally would quote the passages or say verbatim the poems before, like the character would say, we're going to talk about this poem. And he literally would just start rattling off every single one word by word. So it's kind of funny how the academics hit one side a little bit different, where your dad's like, I want you to forget about these arts and, go into hardcore business type things. My father's sitting there behind me like, just spitting off the words, this writer and this poet. And
that's fantastic.
I remember when I had to.
Wonderful.
That's
love
excellent.
It.
Yeah.
That's respect. Because of course.
But the funny part is talking about it going over your head. I'm sitting there like, whatever, Pop. I am not reading any of that shit. Just right there. Let's just keep watching this movie.
Of course.
Stay focused on what's in front of us. All right, we're watching the movie. Don't try to be bringing books in this bullshit. Yeah. And my mom, who was an ex-teacher, sitting there also like, it's not a bad time to start with the books. And I'm like, watching movies. I'm gonna play video games later.
Trying to make me smarter or something.
Yeah. What's the matter with you? You have another child to do that too. All right, just leave me alone.
I love it. The two completely different reactions. I'm sitting there like, Dad, I want to go to film school. Right? And you're like, Dad, I don't want to read.
Basically, like my brother's doing enough reading for both of us. We're good. Leave me alone.
I don't want to read.
I got enough reading at school. I'm just going to go ahead and make my way through school and make as much money as possible. Only one of the two things happen.
I like that you fully embraced your role as the spare, your brother being the heir.
Well, from my dad, I was one of 5, so it was pretty easy to get there.
Okay,
and I'm the youngest of my immediate cousins.
Okay.
I'm the youngest of all the grandkids, so at the same time, in my head, by the time I was 8, I was just like, yeah, I'm just gonna ride this out in the shadow. No one's gonna see me.
I'm gonna ride them fucking coattails. That's how that's gonna work.
Right.
You can't coast in life, son. Why not, Dad?
Yeah.
The next closest sibling is 7 years. The next closest cousin is 5. No one sees me. I'm good here.
You're good.
I love it. Well, that's how and that is how the Three of Clubs was born. I just love it that who knew we were gonna get the origin story of Rashawn out of our stories, our shared stories.
Yeah, all it took was a list of deaths.
Yeah, and from it, the Three of Clubs.
I think I'm successful. This is what I was going for.
Excellent. I love it.
There it is.
All right.
Well, now I feel all awkward. Now I feel self-conscious about it. I cannot stress enough for me that when it comes to movies, it really I don't know if I could ever come up with a top 10 list on any one group. So I just was coming up with things that sort of I could think of. But frankly, I know I'm leaving things out. Like when we stopped talking the last week on this, as soon as we stopped our podcast, immediately I started thinking of like 4 or 5 people I left out. I'm like, how did I leave those people out? Like they